my pleasure. It's my pleasure to introduce our first reader, Linda Sienkiewicz. I hope I got that somewhat right. Linda is a multi-talented writer and artist who grew up in Cleveland, but now lives in Michigan. She has always enjoyed her creativity. According to her bio, Linda spent her youth making books, jewelry, clothing, and painting her shoes different colors when she needed a change. She attended art school and worked in graphics before starting a family and ultimately returning to her love of writing. Linda has written 5 poetry chapbooks, including Security, Postcard of a Naked Man, Dear Jim, and In the Curve of Space and Time. Her newest chapbook, Sleepwalker, is forthcoming in May from Finishing Line Press. Sleepwalker is a collection of poems that speak to Linda's pain healing after her oldest son's death from suicide. This is a limited edition for which pre-publication sales will determine the number of copies printed, and a portion of each sale will be donated to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Her poems have appeared in literary journals, magazines, and anthologies that are too numerous to list, but that include the McGuffin, Mobius, a journal for social change, Rattle, Spoon River Poetry Review, Prairie Schooner, and Peninsula Poets. Linda also writes short stories and essays and has written a novel and a children's book. Her novel, In the Context of Love, was a 2016 finalist for USA Book News Best Book in the Women's Fiction Division, Sarton's Women's Book Award, and the Reader's Choice Women's Fiction Award, among others. Linda both wrote and illustrated her children's book, Gordy and the Ghost Crab. The book is written in rhyme for readers pre-K to age 8. It's a delightfully educational story about a boy's first trip to the beach and how his fears are transformed by the appearance of a strange creature into curiosity and protectiveness. Only a talented artist is likely to illustrate her own kids' book. In addition to writing, Linda is a visual artist who creates mixed media collages and altered books. One of these collages appeared in an independent film called Celebrities in Disgrace. Others have appeared in print publications, including Calyx, From East to West, The McGuffin, and Tar Wolf. If you'd like more information about this awesomely talented woman, Linda has a website and blog and can be found on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. Please welcome Linda.
Thank you. That was a wonderful introduction.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to read a mix of older and newer poems, and I'm going to end with some work from my forthcoming chapbook, Sleepwalker. So we live, as I said, in Rochester in a 1914 home that we've added on to many times. If you've ever seen the Money Pit, that's kind of the way our house has been. So this is titled Home. We pat every plant and valance with the broom, flashlight the entire upstairs, wish it were a sparrow of harmless reputation that invades our home, not a bat, whose sweeping silhouette darkens any sky. We offer no sky, only plaster. I crouch behind a chair while it maneuvers walls, draperies, and lamps in a land where it doesn't speak the language, can't read the cues. I don't want to have to kill it, but before my husband and I can decide what to do, the bat vanishes, leaving us dumb, a still life. We wake early the next morning to discover a brown fur origami, no bigger than a leaf, asleep in our silk ficus. Delicately cupped between 2 berry baskets in our gloved goodwill, it's ushered out as if on a boat to freedom, while we're left to finger the edges of uneasy dreams, wondering what else breathes our air, might find residence in our closet, shred our belongings to nest a litter, having slipped through a crack in the window or under the door. I don't know if anybody ever remembers Red Rose tea. I think they still sell it, but they used to have little porcelain miniatures in the box. When you'd buy a box of tea, you would get these little miniatures. And I can remember one year when they featured endangered species, and on the box it said exciting new series. And I thought, what's so exciting about endangered species? So I had to write a poem, and there were 10 porcelain miniatures that you could collect. And so I mentioned all 10 of these endangered species in the poem, and it's one in every box. The more tea I brew, the better my odds of collecting all 10 handcrafted porcelain miniatures of endangered species, the exciting new series from Ways of England and Red Rose tea. Someday, green sea turtles, spotted owls, peregrine falcons, and manatees will sit beside the Precious Moments collection on my shelf. My mother arranges her figurines on her color console television, the kind with doors to draw over the screen. When I was a girl, my father watched The Wild Kingdom, live action in our living room from Mutual of Omaha, beasts from around the world, polar bears, timber wolves, bald eagles, and panthers, though probably not the imperiled ones in Florida. And there was never a show about the sturgeon, but I might get one in porcelain. Nestled between orange pico and black tea bags in my select box is a humpback whale. It's smaller than my thumb, seam from the mold centered down its gray back, precious and heavy in my palm. This is just the beginning. This is a dream poem titled In My Mother's House. Carved painted dressers and chiffon-robes, wooden credenzas and pedestals, carousel ponies, pianos, curios, and dozens of Davenports fill 3 stories in my mother's house. Her clown collection cavorts on the tables. A limited edition Emmett Kelly Jr. sinks a putt. Her ceramic cardinals chirp from the shelves. Bisque dolls, wicker buggies, shuffleball and Barbies, old prom dresses wait in the basement. In her kitchen, white pastry boxes overflow with kuchen, strudel, sprinkled donuts. Coffee is brewing, chickens in the oven. My mother twirls in her silky Eileen West nightgown, blue with 3 buttons, her fine hair wrapped in sponge rollers, her spine bent. She giggles like a girl, wants me to kiss her like a lover, regressing to an idyllic time when she was loved by a beautiful boy. You promised to kiss me, she says as she rolls on the floor. I pick her up. She's light as a toy mother who says wee as we float through her warm, wonderful house. I don't want to leave. The most vivid dream of her I've had since her death. Her heart is failing, her bones are crumbling, but she's happy. She's home. So I worked for a couple months in a retirement home, and I really did enjoy it, but there were a lot of rules that they had that I didn't quite understand. And in the end, I was a rule breaker. So this is titled Help Wanted, Retirement Home, Part-Time, Evenings, Minimum Pay. I worked the front desk, 5 to 9 p.m. Wasn't supposed to get chatty with the residents or assist them, but I left the phone unattended to hook Denny's special tray onto his wheelchair or tie his bib if he ate in the dining room. He was only 40, wheelchair bound, hands and legs like curled driftwood. His time spent scootering down the hall, an occasional outing with an aide, otherwise stuck with cane-thumping retirees who bitched about his loud stereo. Bleary-eyed with the cold, he once asked me to squirt nasal spray up his dripping nose, which didn't seem possible, the outgoing flow that profuse. I said okay, but I didn't get paid enough to wipe his snot. That made him laugh. He said receptionists came and went as if through revolving doors, but I was the first who brought the outside in with her stories. Yeah, I told him a few, but most nights talking to him was exhausting. A one-way street, no give and take. Sometimes when I heard his electric wheelchair whirring my way, I'd pick up the phone, hold it to my ear, busy with nothing. When I gave notice after 4 months, I couldn't look him in his one good eye, not because it was always rolling, but because he believed I was someone who'd stay. I promised I'd visit. I never did. I still don't understand how his heart could be so big and mine could be so small. My middle son is a musician, and his band used to get gigs before they could even drive a car, before they had driver's licenses. So we would take turns driving him to different places. And this is called Local 432. Past Nails by Pam and the Flint Plasma Company, 3 boys, 1 mine, in pants slung low on their hips, tinker with mics and amplifiers. In one corner, a ceiling panel sags, strips of trash bags door another room. An acrylic portrait of a young rebel Jesus kneeling in crimson overalls graces the wall behind the stage. At the final sound check, the boys become the scammers, raising a fistful of ska, jazz, and punk. Ravers with studded faces and waxed hair, young women plumed in orange, green, and violet, trickle into the local. They bob their heads like dashboard dolls or dance with arms at their side like fluid, elastic worms. Earplugs soften my son's shouts on stage, a crash of song I can't understand. I'm out of sync, yet I feel like I've been here before, squeezed from the adult world into a neon thrum between curfews and freedom. And in this holy place, my presence is tolerated, even accepted as a few grin back or nod, though my hair is not a primary color, and the only piercings I have are in my earlobes. Later, the boys will load their guitars and drums into our family van, and the awkward silences between mother and son will creep back. But for now, I'm giddy as a 15-year-old, itching to start the new religion. Enthusiasm boils over into crowd surfing. Someone's nose gets bloodied in the mosh. He's lifted high, an offering by a cushion of hands, as my son scissors a leap on stage. This is a newer poem. It's titled A View of the World. Hang on. I believed I could communicate with the female mink on my great uncle's farm until I put my thumb up to the cage, and she sliced the tip as keenly as a razor. I believed Pippi Longstocking could save the world. I believed I could save myself from the men my mother warned me about, the ones who might come up through the woods from the far road. I'd offer them mud cakes made with millipedes and spiders. I believed I could live alone in a boxcar with a can opener and a blanket and care for 6 orphans while I was at it. I believed my father actually would flush my brother's head down the toilet. I believed if I walked 3 times fast past the long picture window, my parents would not crash the car on the way home from Talco Club. I believed in being exotic when I danced with 2 wash rag triangles over my flat chest. I believed germs followed me home on my shoes when I used public restrooms. I believed even after I lied to my mother about what I showed the boys behind the fir trees that my heart was made of gold. I believed my brother when he told me we have one big eye in our head with 2 dots from which we view the world. So the next couple of poems I'm going to read are from Sleepwalker, and this is a chapbook. It's going to be published by Finishing Line Press about my eldest son. He took his life in 2011. And it probably took me about 10 years before I could actually start writing about that and about him. So in the chapbook, I included some older poems that are obviously about him, and then some newer work. Before I read this poem here, I should tell you that his full name is Derek Ignatius Sienkiewicz. And Ignatius is his great-grandfather's first name. And he was actually very proud of that name, which is kind of unusual for a young man, but this is titled Jump Drive. The cops picked him and his buddies up for loitering at the Burger King on Walton. They gave him a hard time, not believing Ignatius was an actual name, yet praised him as the only teen who answered, "Yes, sir," "No, sir." As a boy, he raided my jewelry drawer, looking for gold chains and beads so he could dress like his hero, Mr. T. Other times, he walked beside me through the grocers wearing red tights and a cape with the magic marker S. We laughed about his 12th birthday when I caught my sweater on fire lighting the cake candles. He and the sanctimonious boys across the street used to get into it, taunting each other and swiping basketballs. He'd tell me all about the lectures in high school law, but failed class because he couldn't take notes while listening. Hearing his voice on that first call from boot camp at Great Lakes Naval Center made me cry, and that made him cry. When he was stationed in Crete, a Greek teenager gave him the red, white, and blue leather jacket off his back. The Navy praised his rock-solid performance serving his Black Hawk squadron during Operation Southern Watch over Iraqi no-fly zones. I saved the letter. He never talked about it. For Mother's Day, he filled a jump drive with every single recording ever made of the Doors, my last gift from him. We were both Doors fans. This is the second worst thing. The second worst thing on the day we found you, the police made us leave your apartment. Crime scene, they said, though it wasn't. Your father and I sat on the hard rubber treads of the stairs in the hallway. The landlady fretted. I made a phone call or two. The police took your laptop, your notebooks, and I don't know what else. And then you. The next worst thing, your aunt running down the sidewalk, arms waving, screaming, and later, your 89-year-old grandmother crying in my lap. So Ignatius was my son's great-grandfather on his father's side, and this next poem refers to his great-grandfather on my side, whose name was Augusti. Erasure. Your great-grandfather was a sailor. Small and nimble, he climbed the riggings and set the sails. Bananas from Africa to Finland. He built a ship in a smoky glass bottle. When I was a girl, I turned it around and around. How did he get that ship inside? His weathered arms creased his sailship tattoos. He'd be proud you served in the Navy, even though you weren't, and later paid someone to laser your nautical tattoos. That must have hurt. You didn't always want your picture taken, and one time tried to tear yourself from our family albums. You hiding behind a box of Cheerios. You hiding behind a birthday card. Your great-grandfather hid behind thick glasses, talked little. Some people are private. You asked me to keep your poems a secret. I'm sorry, I broke my promise. So yeah, in the chapbook, there's a poem that he wrote. He just started writing probably about a year before he died. This is titled Clean. We returned to Ohio to empty your apartment. Pictures of Marilyn and Sinatra on your walls. The pre-lit Christmas tree I gave you 2 years ago outside on your patio. Your fridge, immaculate, save for a magnet on the door of your young niece in a pink ballet costume. Your laptop, scrubbed. 6 drained wine bottles on the counter, and we can't find the key for the '81 Corvette we didn't know you had. I sprain my back trying to lift a duffel bag loaded with old magazines. The autopsy report comes back clean, only mild arterial buildup, hereditary. And so this is my last poem. And if you're interested in a copy of Sleepwalker, advanced sales are running now through March 24th. And the easiest way is to go to my website, and it's just my full name, lindaksienkiewicz.com. And there you'll find a direct link to Finishing Line Press, or else there's another link to a printable mail-in form if you don't feel comfortable, buying something on the internet. And as mentioned before, all of my advanced sales, my personal sales are going to go to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and also Suck It Suicide, which is a Detroit-based nonprofit. So you'll be contributing to a good cause. So I had just read today that every 11 minutes somebody takes their own life, and that doesn't count how many try or how many are talked out of it. So thank you so much for listening. And this is the title poem, Sleepwalker. Second to the right, and then straight on till morning, my son wanders alone in another place, a different time, turning the invisible pages of a happily ever after fairy tale. I sleep in my tennis shoes, one ear tuned for the nonsensical jabber that precedes his vacant-eyed walk down the hallway to the stairs. I wonder if he's searching for some once upon a time land where fairy mothers give 3 wishes, not a scolding when the day gets long. I fear he might decide to stay lost in the land of giants, or follow the town musicians to Bremen and never want to come back. Each night I give him my kiss to wear on a chain around his neck. I wish I had a magic mirror to let me step into his dreams, or a wooden shoe to rock him in, sailing on the misty sea. Up all night, I am on the other side of his journey. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. That's it.